Well, here we are, episode 300 of Living the Next Chapter. Man, I couldn't be more humbled and more honored to be here with the legend, the man, the myth, the guy you all know and love, David Campbell. We're doing episode 300 today. We're going to break storytelling down. I'm Dominick Domasky, Motivation Champs. I'm just so happy to be here with David Campbell, episode 300. So I wish I had a kazoo, I would blow it. But otherwise, we're just going to get right to it, man. David Campbell, we all love him. Let's listen to episode 300. Here we go.
All right. So living the next chapter, I have my friend, my inspiration, the guy who actually, if you don't know, actually created the idea of living the next chapter by kicking me in the butt, saying we need a podcast for authors. And Dave, you need to make it. So all of this is your fault, Dominick Domasky, and I appreciate every time I get to come to the mic and meet another author because of you. So thank you for the gentle push to start the show.
Man, you do a fabulous job, and you listen so well. And now you're going to be all freaked out, like, I better listen more. But you listen so well, and it shows people that you care. And when I'm always like listening to your shows when I'm running and things like that, and you can just hear it, you can see it, you can feel it. And I know the authors of mine that you've interviewed, when they get off interview with you, they have so much energy, and that's a special thing you're doing. So keep living that next chapter, man.
It's amazing. Yeah, and that's why we have the name. And that's the one thing, I guess, as a host, we don't really know the impact that we have on a guest, right? We have a short window of time with them. We get them on the show, and we have this great interaction. And as a host, probably one of the biggest things I'm struggling with is what to do after, like 6 months later. Like, I don't want to just have a conversation with someone and then never speak to them again. I want to stay in their world. I want to be a part of it. So that's something that I'm always wrestling with 300 episodes. How do you juggle 300 guests? That's a lot of people. Put them in a room. That's a lot of people to have interaction with all the time, right? So
what's the answer? What do you do?
That's what I'm struggling with. And I reach out to people who are in the space, and they just say, well, have them back. And I'm like, well, I have another 300 people lined up. So I met with a person yesterday. They have 1,000 authors to send to me. 1,000. Like, how am I supposed to have 1,000 people on my show? I don't know how I'm going to do that. So it's just the doors are opening up so wide right now. And I think that's probably one thing that we've talked about many times is when you put good things out into the world, you get noticed. Yeah. Right? Because people are like, that's different and unique. You treat people with respect and you honor their time and you give them a great interview. It's going to bring more people to you. And I think we need that for everything we do. Right? Selling books, getting on stage. That's an opportunity every time we do this. We got Cre8tive Con coming up with our great friend, Julie. That's an opportunity to stand in front of a group of people and share a message. How do we do that in a way that honors the audience and makes them walk out the doors going, that was the best investment of my time ever to be a part of that conference, right? So everything we do, we have this interaction with people, and I think we all need to step up and do our best in the moment for them, right?
Well, one of the things about you, man, that I think you're doing great, it doesn't matter if somebody's a bestseller, 10-time bestseller, 1 million books sold, or they're thinking about writing a book, they're thinking about starting a podcast. You treat them all equally. And this is a space where some people say, well, I treat this person the same as I treat this person. You hear this cliche, I treat the owner the same way as the janitor. You should. Anybody that's bragging about this, you should treat them the same. Like, they're all people. They all have a story. They all have that big red heart in the middle. To think that you need to make some kind of delineation that tell me that you're treated. I get the cliche of it. Yes. Okay. Everybody's equal. But at the same time, you don't need to tell me about it. Just get out there and do it. And that's what you're doing. And I hope I can live in that same world. Like, hey, man, that person I met at the grocery store, they are cool. That person I met at the bus station, when I'm at the Steeler game, in the parking lot, they have a story. They're important. And to give them what you give them, it's important. And to your question, I think where you were going is everybody does have a story. And a place like Living the Next Chapter, gives them a place to elevate that message.
Yeah.
And that's a special place. So thank you, man.
Yeah. And I guess one of the side things I never anticipated as a host of a podcast was to have time with people while they're here, and now they're gone. So when I pull up the video footage of Paul Gray, the amazing Paul Gray, I get goosebumps seeing him on my camera, on my screen, and reliving that conversation that I had with him now that he's no longer with us. And you don't know how long we have here on this planet, and to have interaction with people and capture a moment with them, to hear their heart, and to be able to tell their story or help share their story, I guess, is such a powerful thing that nobody told me would happen. I had no idea. And then another one of my shows, the Upcycle Canada podcast, I had a gentleman who would take pianos apart and remake them into things. And he saved memories by repurposing pianos. And he's now passed. And I have things that he made for me and shipped up to me from the States that he made just for me to say thank you. You know, and I can rewatch that video, and it was his first time ever being on camera to talk about what he does, you know, and he struggled through the beginning, trying to figure out, get his feet under him. But what a great memory to have and to give back to the family and say, here's a clip of your dad, of your husband, you know, your brother. Here's him on camera talking about how much he loves his family. Like, what an opportunity as a podcaster to have that kind of connection with somebody beyond interviewing you for your book, right? It just feels so transactional, but having a connection with a person is just a different level. I just love it.
And you provided legacy and eternal life for that family, that energy, I'm a big believer in is energy. So my grandma Jenny, who was the sweetest person who passed, let's say 30 years ago, Grandma Jenny's spirit was so positive and so good, and tried to give $1. And even though she was poorer than dirt, had no dollar, every person that walked in, she gave $1 to. And the spirit, and the 40 years later, people still tell stories about Grandma Jenny. And like you creating this podcast, sharing this story out into the world, me as a publisher, helping them get their stories out to the world. So generations from now, 100 years from now, 20 years from now, they can see what they wrote. They can see what they said. They can see Paul Gray smiling as he talks to David Campbell, the energy, the fire that a person like him had, and you get to actually witness it and see, wow, that's special.
And I think that goes to writing your book, sharing your story. Think of how many people are sitting on a story that's sitting in a desk, sitting on a counter, in a book somewhere that they just never released because they're like, who am I? Who's going to read my book? Who cares? Like, who's going to care what I have to say? And here you are as someone who helps people do that, get their story out in the world. Your story's legacy. Your story is going to be there for your family long after you're gone. And your family needs that story to be told, right? They need that.
What if you help? What if you could help? And here's sometimes when we get down to the root with an author. What if you could help one person? When somebody starts the process, a lot of times they say, I wish I could share this with one person. I wish I could help one person. I wish one person got happiness or fulfillment from this book. That would be a great start. And at the beginning, that's what people shoot for. And then at some point, often the goalpost moves, and then they start setting expectations based on what Kim Kardashian did or what somebody on YouTube did. Oh, well, this person went viral. But you said early on that you wanted to help one person. So you achieved that. And then if you're able to get on David's show and meet 100 new people, 1,000 new people, well, now 1,000 people heard your message. So I think those expectations, the goalpost, that's a football analogy, gets moved at some points, and then people start to be too hard on themselves because, well, I'm not where I wanted to be. But you already surpassed where you ever thought. Like, let's say you mentioned like the publishing of the book.
Yeah.
Well, to share that, to put it all in one document, and that's an accomplishment. to have it there for your family. That's an accomplishment. For them to be able to reflect on your spirit 10 years from now, 20 years from now, be able to go somewhere and buy it. Amazing. So then now are we supplementing businesses with our stories and things like that? Well, now that's changing. Okay, there's a whole different business becomes business model and that, but that isn't at its root. A lot of times that's not what it was.
Yeah. And this whole idea about doing it for one person, and does that matter? And for my How to Podcast series, I also talk to podcasters and I say, what is your minimum number of success? 100,000 people? Is that your minimum number until that number you're not happy? Or is it one? Would you podcast for an audience of one? Like, really? Would you get up and do the thing, show up as a podcast host for one person? Yes or no? Would you walk into a room and go, oh, there's only one person here? I'm sorry for wasting your time. Let's cancel and come back when there's more people. Does that one person matter to you? In that moment, they showed up for you. Like, they're here. They care about your message. They care about you as a host. They care about you as an author. Would you show up for one person? Yes or no?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And if you can't answer that question, then you need to kind of rethink what's your motivation. Because I would show up for a room with one person, 5 people, and give them my best if there was 100,000 or 5 people. Yeah. Because those 5 people decided to not do something else, to be there for me and to listen to my podcast or read my book or do whatever. They chose me over something else. So in that moment, they are the most important people in front of me. So whether you're writing a book, writing a podcast, writing a song, I don't know, whatever, those people that are going to be there, even if it's small, they really do matter. So pour yourself into them. And that's why when I do my podcast interviews, it's just me and my guest. I want to pour myself into that guest. I don't want to be surface level. I don't want to just do the easy softball questions. Let's go deep. Let's hear who you are, right? And let's connect as guests and host. I feel like it's my opportunity to have that kind of build that bridge with a new person in my life. And the one thing I've been ending off with is a question, and I'll throw it to you and see what you think, how you would answer this. But Dom, you leave a room and all of your past authors, all of the connections you've had over the years are all in one room together. You leave the room. What do you want them to say about you when you're not there?
That's a great question. I think about this, and I've been thinking about it recently. And I even if I was to pass today, I want people to say, "Wow!" I'd keep it pretty basic. Man, that guy was a pretty good dude. Man, that guy tried his best. Man, so if I left that room, I would want people to say he gave. Yeah. He gave as much as he could. He gave, and I'm not saying just gave free. I'm saying gave himself, gave everything he had. Like you mentioned, that in that moment, that one person, I wanted to throw it back to you on that. In that moment, what is it that makes somebody start to think otherwise? That, and are they wrong for thinking otherwise, or what is it? Let's say they said, I wanted to get my message out to 10 people and there was only one person there. What is it that makes them angry about that?
I just think it's a disappointment in the fact that we chase numbers so much.
Yeah.
Right. And that's our metric for success. I have X number of Instagram followers. I have this many people on my email newsletter. I have this many people listening to my podcast. I've sold this many books in the first 7 days of my launch of my book. And that's how I measure whether or not I'm a success. That's what really matters, is who are you? Like, who are you as a person, right? How do you show up in the world? How do you contribute? Are you the person that holds the door at the store for the person behind you who's trying to get through the door with arms full of stuff? Or are you the person that lets the door slam in their face because you're too self-absorbed and you're on your phone doing the latest TikTok, but there's somebody who needs your help and they're right there? Be a good person is really the big thing I'm learning in life is we need to be a good human being. And there's people that come on my show, Tom, that I might not necessarily agree with or have the same worldview. And in that moment, I've seen them come on for a pre-interview and I come on the screen and they roll their eyes like, oh, great, another white guy, and they're like, oh, this is not going to go well. I didn't know who this was. I've heard their podcast, but I didn't see them. And they have this immediate reaction to me as, this is a guy that thinks this certain way, and I'm not going to be welcome on his show.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute, that's not how I operate, right? I want to hear everyone's voice. I want you to come on and have the best experience, and I'm going to go to bat for you.
Yeah.
I just want you to know that I really, truly value you, and I'm here to learn something from you. And whatever experiences you've had in the past with somebody who looks like me, I apologize for, because that's not me and that doesn't represent me. Yeah. So I want you to understand that you have a spot here, and your voice matters. You're a human being, and that's what I'm here to serve. I'm here to serve you. Right.
I'm clapping for David. Right. Hey, you need that applause. And that's why you're at episode 300 and going strong with 1,000 people waiting to be on. Because
so
it's that.
My answer to the same question I asked you: what do you want people to say when you're not in the room? I want people to say that Dave collected people. Dave collected people. That was his thing. Some people collect tchotchkes, and I've got Coca-Cola stuff behind me on my shelf. I collect things, but I collect people. I collect this relationship that I have with people, and I value every single one. I can pull off one of my collection of people and tell you the story behind their book, tell you a story behind their family. This gentleman lost his wife. He has 6 kids, and he's living life with 2 autistic boys, and this is him. I can tell you about a lawyer I had on yesterday, 45 years as a lawyer, and his new journey as an author. And what was interesting for him is at the very end of the podcast, I said to him, after 45 years of being a lawyer, I said, you got to miss it a little bit as you retire. He's like, yeah, I do. I said, so at the end, usually what I ask is a question of my guest. But for you, I would love your closing argument on why we need to tell our story. Please address the jury and tell us why we need to share our story in this world. And I've let him go. And he's like, ladies and gentlemen of the jury. And I'm like, this Southern gentleman gets on and he starts doing his thing. And it was like goosebumps because he got to leverage something that he hasn't done in a while. And you could see the smile on his face. I had a wrestler come on my show, professional wrestler. And I found his intro script from when he was a young wrestler and what they said as he came to the ring. And I introduced him on my podcast with the script from when he used to come to the ring as a young wrestler. And I did the whole thing that they would say from the mic as he came up to the mat. And he says, no one's going to understand what that means except me. And you did that for me. I have no idea. No words. Yeah. Right. So that's the kind of stuff that I think sets apart a human connection, is that we really do invest in each other.
Yeah, right. One more thing, right? With no expectations.
No.
Right? I don't have to think, I need to be nice to this person so I can get something. So no, it's just be good. So I have this belief that, that I'm just trying to be the best me I can be.
Good.
And I can't be anybody else. So you still might see me drink a beer. You still might see me smoke a cigar. You still might see me cheering at a Steeler game. Maybe I'm a little too loud. Yeah, but I am going to be all I can be is the best me I can be. I can't be as calm as David. I can't be as spiritual full as this person. I can be the best me I can be. And that's so every day, if I achieve that, best husband I can be in this moment, best son I can be in this moment today. Because sometimes there's multiple things going on in a day. I can only be the best me in here right now, the best me at this moment. And then if I can lay down at the end of the night and be exhausted and ready for bed and not stay up for 4 hours because I'm worried about things I should have said, things I should have done, places I should have went. No, I gave it my best that day. Yeah. And that's, I'm trying, David.
Yeah.
And
So bring it all back, Dominick, to an author listening. Yeah. They're looking at a blank page, wondering where they fit in the world. We're talking about the end result, where you get to come on a podcast and promote your book. You get to go on whatever and show off your book, and you're holding it for the first time. They're far from that stage. They're just in the beginning. Kind of summarize some of the things we've talked about. We've gone many places, which I love with you. I always love that. But how do we kind of take what we've talked about so far, about, again, maybe what people will say about you when you're not in the room? How do we take that back to the beginning of writing our book and then start outlining and start the path? Where do we start?
All right, I'm going to give you a couple things here. So let me get on a tangent.
Good.
I see the world just hit 8 billion people. So I say, number one, there's 8 billion people in the world, and there's only one David Campbell. There's only one Dominick Domasky. Yeah. So there's only one you, whoever we are talking to right now. There's only one you. Your story is different than those 8 billion people. Yeah. Your story is different. It is unique. So whatever you start to write on that paper is, I have a friend, Evelyn Van Ness, she says, be authentically, relentlessly yourself. And if you do that on that paper, number one, nobody else can do what you just put on that paper. Nobody else can do it. So have confidence, be proud in that it is original, it is uncopied, it is unique to you. Wow. Imagine I wrote a story that nobody else in the world could tell. You hold the pen. Nobody could tell that story. Okay, so be confident in that. That being said, it takes practice. And this is where, from a publisher and a storyteller, like David's been on David's had 300 podcasts, and he has other shows too. This is 300 living the next chapter. So how many have you done altogether?
Oh, total?
Yeah.
Well, this month alone, November, I'm releasing 60 episodes this month. 30 on one podcast and 30 on another. So that's just one pod. Those are just 1 month. So yeah, I have lost count at this point.
So where I'm going with this, there are transferable skills from other careers, like the gentleman you mentioned being a lawyer. Yeah. He has transferable skills that are able to elevate him in the writing world. So whether it's you were a mom and you can transfer those skills into your writing, or you worked in the factory and you were able to commit to something for 8 hours every straight day, you have transferable skills that could help you in this world. That is a benefit. But you still have to practice, meaning you should tell your story to your friends. You should share parts of your story on social media. You should try social audio. You should try networking. You should try standing on a stump out in your backyard and practicing. And I really think for your story to be heard later on and for it to be consumable, you want it to be consumable. And once you have this story, I have a notebook here, if you haven't noticed. I have a notebook beside it. And if for your story to be consumable, you're going to hold that story and it's going to be so near and dear to your heart. Yeah. You wrote this. It's your baby. You love it. And at some point, you're going to let it go out in the world. So you have to be prepared for it to go out in the world. You have to put yourself out there, and there's going to be people that don't love your story. There's going to be people that don't understand. There's going to be people that aren't ready for it. But if you start to practice, if you put yourself out there, by the time that story comes, you're going to be ready. Mm-hmm. And then keep practicing, keep building, keep developing, keep growing. But move forward every day. So I'll bring it back around. Just move forward every day in some way, whether that's writing a word on a page, whether that's going back and editing, whether that's sharing something on Twitter. Well, why would I share something on Twitter? Well, because it was practicing that message. Can you share your message in one line? Get on a podcast. Can you share your message in 30 minutes? Try social audio. Can you share your message in a platform with all these different people around? Can I go to a networking group, shake somebody's hand, and share my message? That's all those are valuable and will help a storyteller, because it is. And so now I'll bring it another way, back to, like you mentioned, Cre8tive Con, and I thank you. The premise of Cre8tive Con is that we want your message to be omnipresent, that you have a message. People are consuming, like people consume podcasts, people read books, people are on social media. So if you wrote the world's best book and you don't have a presence on social media, maybe all these people that are on social media won't find your book. Maybe all these people that listen to the podcast won't have the opportunity to learn about you and find your book. So this Cre8tive Con, it's in February 17th and 18th, and we're bringing in experts from all these different pillars, whether it's publishing, podcasting, promotions, publicity, and we are going to talk. We're going to have workshops. We're going to have panel discussions. We're going to have keynote speakers, and it's to build this kind of content. It's to build your story so that you're comfortable. And what I was just saying, that first time that you have to go to a networking group and look somebody in the eyes and tell them about your personal story. The time you get on a show like David's and you have to tell David about maybe a trauma that you had at one point. And you need to, so the practice so that you're ready for the moment, because their moment's going to happen. And I think when it does, David, you're going to make them ready. They're going to be ready, and they have a hell of a story for the world. So I went a lot of places there, and because you're a great listener, you didn't interrupt me, but that's all going to get edited out. But thank you.
I'm not chopping anything about Dominick Domasky. Are you kidding? I guess the one thing too is to create a safe space. That's the other thing that I really try to do on the podcast. I've had people, Dom, and the first time it happened, I didn't know what to do, to have somebody break down on the podcast. And I'm just like looking off to the side, like, do I need to like leave right now? Like, do we need a pause? Or they're like, no. It was a good question. I've never talked about this before, but to take a big breath, here we go. And they started going down a path they've never spoken about before. And you're like, the fact that somebody would be willing to do that. And when we're done, we hit stop. And I'm like, okay, if there's anything in here that you don't want to go out in the world, I'm happy to remove anything that we've talked about. They're like, nope, it had to be said. And I've never had the opportunity to say it before. Thank you. And I'm like, wow. And then when I get into the editing bay, I'll ask a question to my guest and you can hear them. It was for one of Char's authors, actually for Mission Hope. And I asked this author a question. And when she was responding, she could only do like a couple words at a time, and then a big break, a couple more words and a break, because she was like reformulating her thoughts in real time. And I could have chopped that all up and made it sound really crisp and clean and no breaks. I left the silence as it was because I wanted you as a listener to hear somebody wrestle with a question in real time. And as awkward as it feels to be like, did it stop playing? Oh, there she is. Oh, wait, why is it quiet? And that was the real moment in that conversation. And I wanted people to experience that. And I wanted to honor my guest by not taking that out. I wanted it to feel real because that's how it was, right? So little things like that is what I try to do behind the scenes to make the podcast real. Because again, I don't want something to be fake or manufactured or polished. I want it to be as it was. So you mentioned, and I'm going to cut out all the stuff that you said. No, I'm not, because there's so much gold in there and wisdom that we're going to call back to that later as we chat. And if I remove that, you're going to lose context as a listener. So I want you to have that in there so you can hear it, because we're human beings. And I think that's the other thing goes back to writing. We're human beings. We're processing life. We're doing this in real time. And are we perfect? No. Are we going to stumble? Of course. I say the word so way too much. I know that. And sometimes I'll catch them, sometimes I don't. But this is how we do life. And I want people to understand when you write your book and when you share your story, you don't have to be perfect. You don't have to be polished and dressed in your best with the right answers and crisp and clean and everything's perfect. And they're all sound bites. We don't talk in sound bites. We don't write in sound bites. We're human beings kind of figuring life out as we go. So live your life and let people come along on the journey. And when you start writing your book, I think one of the things I would encourage people to do is take your community on the journey of writing the book. Don't 100%. Hide it. Let people see you struggle with chapter 1. Let people come along on the journey. And then when you get to the end and you hold the book in your hand in front of people on social media, people will be like, I've been with you for the last X number of months or years. I've followed the journey and now I'm ready to support you. to buy your book. So take people along with you.
Yeah, brilliant. I couldn't agree more. So many people don't share that journey. And then all of a sudden, if you would say, if you would use this analogy, people, before they buy something, they like you, they trust you, they buy from you.
Yeah.
So here you are, now you have this thing, a story that you believe in, whether it's in book form, podcast form. If you've never shared your story at all, if you've never posted, if you've never told the world about it, they don't know you in that world. So now you're starting out from zero, trying to share this message. Well, you didn't know this side of my life. You didn't know that I failed in business. You didn't know that, I'm saying in other people's case, that maybe there was abuse or trauma, this. But had you, I always love when somebody, an author, shares a picture of me in front of them, in front of the screen, in front of their computer, blank page. That's the reality of it. Or those messages that you're later on going to share, the turning your camera around and doing a video and telling me, you're not telling the whole story, you're telling 10 seconds of that story. And you're working on it, and you're seeing, this is, like you mentioned, the woman that broke down a bit.
Yeah.
That's that's authentic as can be.
Yeah.
But as she tells that story, she'll be able to probably get through that moment of that story. And that's a practice, so that she's able to, maybe someday she'll be on Ellen or whoever the hot show is. And she'll be ready because she practiced it. She shared it. She developed it. So,
and there's that one person listening who identifies with what we're talking about, who has had a similar experience, who's never told anybody. And here we are listening to somebody who's walked the same path that they're walking or have walked. And they're hearing it for the first time through someone else's story and hearing them wrestle with it and then going, that's my person. That's me on that podcast in that moment. And I'm now being helped by somebody's story. Again, back to would you do it for one person? When we come to podcasting, we're talking, it's you and I, and there's only one other person right now with us. Would you and I get together and do this to benefit that one person? Yes or no? Would that be worth our time? But as we talk, this person listening, who's been here so far all the way to this point, is listening along with us going, there's something about this conversation that's bringing value to me as a listener. And I'm identifying with Dom, and I love what he's doing, and I want more Dom in my life, and we all need that. But just the idea that somebody could connect with us by listening, and the beauty of podcasting is nobody knows what you're listening to. You could be listening to music right now. You could be listening to an audiobook. Nobody has any idea. But you're sitting there with your headphones in your ear or over your head, and you're listening to this conversation, or you're listening to a conversation about somebody who's gone through a really traumatic time, and they found grace or hope or love or something has saved them and brought them out of this story. And you're like, that's me. And I've never told anybody this, but I'm finding somebody in life that I can connect with, and I can buy that book or support that person because they spoke to me through a podcast. Such an intimate experience to be a listener of a show.
If you just came up with that now, that is absolutely fabulous. I'm thinking about that, all these people with their headphones on right now, walking around wherever, their life could be changing right now.
Yeah.
And you don't even know. And then for your storytellers, for the authors, for the people on your show, it could be their voice that's changing that person's life. Wow.
Yeah.
Man.
So I did a little mini series on my How to Podcast series called the Appleseed series. It was based on a quote that I found that said, you can count the number of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the number of apples in a seed. One seed has unlimited potential to create as many apples as possible.
Yeah.
Right. You can't measure that. So as we look at the impact of our story, right, we can count the number of people who buy our book, but you can't count what happens with after they've read the book and how their life is different and how that difference translates to their relationships, to their children, to their jobs, to their community. and how you live your life differently in front of people, and their lives are different. And then their lives are different for someone else. You can't measure that number. So again, going back to, would you podcast or would you write a book for one person? What if that one person lived a different life because of what you shared, and their entire world changed, and their entire future changed? Generations changed because they found something in what you did that reprogrammed how they think and how they view life. Is that not worth it for one person?
You are, I can't be happier to be here with you right now. And I don't know if it's the accumulation of all the episodes and stuff that you've done and the years. Yeah, I know years aren't always easy, David, and there's ups and downs and things like that, but you are fabulous. And the message I'm receiving, like you said, the one person, I almost want to keep this. I almost want to be greedy and keep this for me,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm sitting here just I'm 100% invested in what you're saying, and I'm thinking, hey, that book I wrote 20 years ago that maybe nobody read, and I thought maybe I did impact a life, or that this day when you opened the door, maybe you did, and the ripple and the ripple and the ripple, and that's what you were really driving home.
Yeah.
You're fabulous.
What I love too is when I talk to podcasters, I try to encourage them to celebrate the small. Be the same for an author. Celebrate the small.
Mm-hmm.
That if you have a group of 5 people who are following your journey and communicating with you and doing life with you, social media, in person, whatever, celebrate the small, because there's going to become a time in your life when you're going to grow and you're not going to have the bandwidth to interact with everyone that comes across your path. Again, I have 300 episodes. I can't, that's my wrestling point. I can't interact the way I want to with 300 people in a genuine, sustainable way, because that's 300 people and I still have more coming. So I'm wrestling with this, right, as a host. But in my early days of my podcast, I only had a few listens, and people get upset and frustrated by a few listens. But I can now talk to those 5 people who listen to my show. I can find out who they are, get their names by asking and getting communication happening, and build relationships with them. To know that Keith walks his dog in Ireland along the ocean as he listens to our conversation right now. Hi, Keith. It's so amazing to know that I know the name of my listener. Like, that's something you can celebrate in the early days. And don't rush past that point in your story to get to the big number where you find success. For me, I find success in the 1 to 5. If I can have that relationship and maintain that and sustain that, anybody that comes into my world from that point forward is like, this isn't my home. This feels like home to me, because Dave and his guests are creating a safe spot for me to listen in privacy to a conversation that I can't have with my friends and family, but I can connect with this content. So just celebrate the small. Don't be in such a hurry to get past that stage, because you're going to miss it. It's like when your kids are little, right? You're like, oh, I can't wait for you to grow up so I don't have to deal with this stuff. Can't wait for you're a teenager. Can't wait for you to be an adult. And then all of a sudden, I wish I could go back to when you were small. Right? Because right now for me, I'm an empty nester. My kids are out of the house. My kids don't sleep under the same roof every night, and I miss it. Yeah. So in all of our busyness of life of trying to get to the finish line, we get to the finish line and look back and go, I miss the days of having a small audience, of only a few people knowing about my book or my podcast. Yeah. I miss those days. So don't be in a hurry to get to the finish line. Enjoy your journey.
That's beautiful, man. I'm just, you remind me so many times along the way, like looking back now at the journey, some of the best memories are those times when it was the hardest, or where it looked the most desolate. I can remember speaking at a county fair one time, and county fairs have like thousands of people walking through them. And I had a stage spot at lunch, and there was nobody there. So I go out and get ready to do my speech, except the people eating hot sausages and stuff like that. So, so one, it's eye opening, right? This is the reality of what into. Uh, so I just talked to the people that were eating sausages. I sit on the side of the stage and talk to these people and talk to those people, and that was, and that was beautiful. And but in the moment, when you're thinking, oh, I wish people were ravenous to hear me. No, they weren't. And so it was just part of the journey. And then I'm thinking about, I'll give you one more. I talk a lot about me and my dad. When my mom was getting sick, she had Alzheimer's, and we knew she wasn't going to be able to be at home much longer. And so we decided to take this bike ride from Pennsylvania to Washington, D.C., because there's a bike trail that goes from Pittsburgh to D.C. We had done a lot of the Pittsburgh side, but we wanted to do the other 200 and some miles. So,
Wow.
father-son adventure. So my dad was 76 at the time, and we weren't like good bicyclists or anything like that. I mean, my dad wore jeans, and I had like a weird V-neck on and some strange pants. And we go out takes about 3 days to ride the 200 and some miles, and the Potomac River had flooded, and the Potomac is a pretty big river that goes, through D.C., and Potomac had flooded for hundreds of miles because of a hurricane had come through. So now me and my dad were off the trail. We're riding along these major highways. The ones, I think it was Route 40, whatever it is. So now we're detoured. It's me and my dad, bags, we're dirty, and it's just the two of us walking along this highway, interstate. At that moment, you would have thought anybody passing by, perception of somebody else, their perception, look at these two guys. Oh, that's a shame. I'm so sad for them. Things will turn up for them. When I look back at my life, when the stage that nobody showed up on, or to see I'm hanging out with the hot sausage people, or that moment hanging out with my dad, just me and him with no other possessions but a bag. To me, pure happiness. Like I didn't need. There was one person, me, dad, just like this. Nobody else. I didn't need anybody else around in the happiest moments. So the journey, appreciating the journey. Sometimes I wonder if along that route to where we are today, to 300, to 300 that got David to where he is, the moment David, but look at these one-on-ones you had along the way, that's what that was all about. Me too, man.
Love it. So this is the best way to start my day. You're the first recording of the day. I've got a whole calendar full today. I'm going to travel the world with a microphone and a set of headphones. It's amazing who I get to talk to and who I get to interact with. And again, this podcast came from a seed of an idea, a seed of an idea that you imparted to me. And I just want you to know that none of this would have happened had you not kind of dreamed out loud and said, wouldn't it be great if there was a podcast for authors? And then here we are, 300 episodes later. So the joy of that I have is I'm not an author yet, but I get to be a curious audience member who gets to interview and spend time with amazing authors and connect with people, all because of a simple idea and a simple musing that you had 300 episodes ago that kind of put a spark in me saying, Dave, you can do this. So talk about motivation champs. You live up to your brand, Dom, in everything that you do. There's not one moment of the day that I've interacted with you or heard you or come across your content where you're not there to motivate people. And I just want you to know that without you, none of this would have happened. So you motivate me so much and my life is better. So if you walked out of the room, I would tell people that Dominick Domasky is one of the most selfless people in the world, that he cares deeply. It's not a show. He does really, truly care about you as a person, and he wants to see you succeed. He will do everything he can to bring your success, and then quietly back away and let you enjoy the success that you've earned. But it wouldn't have happened, maybe, without his gentle push. So that's who Dominick Domasky is. So I want people to know that about you.
That's deep. And I would say that I am fortunate to be able to see diamonds. And a diamond miner in per se. Some diamonds they just need brushed off. Some are so clear. Some I wonder how the diamond can't see its own reflection. And so I would argue that I've my only skill set was to be able to see, holy cow,
Yeah.
that woman, that guy, that
Yeah.
David Campbell has something. And so for that, that's where I think my if God gave me one gift, it's that. Oh man, how does that person not know? How do they not know what I see? Man, wow. Like I'm sitting here thinking as you talk, and I'm thinking, man, he's gonna have 300 more episodes. He's probably, I wonder when he's like worldly famous, if he'll remember. And so hopefully someday you don't forget me either. Thank you, David.
Are you coming back for episode 400?
If I'm invited, I'm coming back.
Talking about you're invited. You're going to be back for every 100 episodes. I love it. Again, tell us again about Cre8tive Con and Motivation Champs.
Lovely. I'm appreciative of the opportunity. Love spending time with you. Really, and you lifted me. You said a lot of nice things, but you lifted my spirits. And I like what you said about the safe space. And maybe that's why we get along so well together, because we both try to provide these safe spaces. And so what Motivation Champs is at its root, it's a place where 24/7 we share inspiration, positivity, smiles, and help people do the same. So if you have a story to share, we believe it deserves respect. We deserve it. We think it should be developed, and we try to give you platforms to share that content. Cre8tive Con, we're taking it a step farther. This year, we're going to do it in person, February 17th and 18th in Chicago. And for storytellers, maybe you've been told that your story doesn't matter. Maybe there's somebody in your life that doesn't believe. They just don't know. Maybe they're not in this world. They're not in the world that me and David are in, so they don't know that you can call David and help him, and he'll help you develop a podcast. They don't know that you could have support writing your book. You don't have to do it alone. So Cre8tive Con, we're going to bring in people from all different pillars that have done it, that understand where you're at in the journey, and they'll help you elevate your message, help you craft your story. And that's that in a nutshell, man. I appreciate you.
Awesome. Everyone go check out all the information in the show notes. If it's your first time ever hearing this podcast and you joined us for episode 300, you have a lot of homework to do. You got to go back and listen at least to episodes 100 to 200, and you've listened to this one. Get as much Dom in your life as possible. I think, Dom, you were one of my very first guests as well. You and Mr. Harry Spate kicked all this off. So there's been a lot of Dom here, and there's a reason why, is because I truly respect this person, and I send people to you constantly, Dom, because I hear them wrestling with their story, and I'm like, I know who can help you. So if you're listening, you're wrestling with your story, you're looking for someone to give you gentle guidance. And one thing I love about Dom, he said, Dom said this, even if I can't help you, I know somebody who can, and I will help you to get that connection. So I know that Dom can help you, and I know that he's here to motivate you and help you on your journey as an author, as a content creator. Definitely go check out Cre8tive Con and give Dom some love and show up in his world, and you will never regret it. Dom, thank you so much for taking time to do this.
Thank you, David. And one more, congratulations. We love you.
All right. Everyone, all the information in the show notes. Go and support Dom and all the great authors over there. And our best to Shar Murphy as well, and all of her pursuits as a great author. And I just love all these great people in life. So, Dom, thank you. Jumping here at the very end, I want to thank you for coming. We have listeners around the world, and I got to tell you, as a podcaster, it is so great to hear back from the people who listen to the show. Now, you are still here. The podcast's over. Like, we're sweeping up and putting the chairs away. You're still here. So, hi. I would love to talk to you. Oh, no, I really, really would. I would love to hear your voice. I would love to hear from you through email. You can do all that at livingthenextchapter.com. I say it fast because I love it. Living the Next Chapter. It's the name of the podcast. .com. How's that for easy? Right? Right. So come on over there and let's have a conversation. You can set up time in my calendar. You can, air quote here, book. Book time in my calendar. Book next chapter. Let's have a conversation. Thanks for being here. See you on the next one. Cheers.
Ready to take your story to the next level? It's time to get off the sidelines and share your story. Join us at Cre8tive Con, where you'll learn the actionable steps from experts and doers to turn your dreams into reality. Whether you're an aspiring podcaster, a seasoned pro, new or published author, speaker, creative, visionary, or dreamer crafting your message, this is your moment to shine. Our panels, workshops, keynotes, and networking opportunities will help you overcome the roadblocks, effectively articulate your message, and share your message to the masses. Discover how to position yourself as an industry leader by leveraging podcasting, publishing, production, and promotions. For those seeking purpose beyond the corporate grind, we'll ignite your passions and guide you to a more fulfilling path. If you've ever thought about breaking free from the 9-to-5 routine and taking control of your destiny, we'll show you how. Authors, you'll learn to expand your horizons and broaden your reach. Cre8tive Con is where you'll find confidence, support, and a clear roadmap to success. If you've ever doubted yourself, this is your chance to step out of your comfort zone and make your creative dreams a reality. Secure your Cre8tive Con tickets now for our virtual December 2nd event and our 2-day live event February 17th to 18th at Cre8tivecon.com. That's Cre8tivecon.com. Creative with an 8. The future is yours. Speak it, write it, live it.